Welcome everybody, I'm Joshino, and today we're going to be talking about the Way of the Warrior, and that's the code name for Open Beta 56 for Paladins. This patch actually I think is pretty wholly good. Let's just jump into it. So first of all, I have talked about Ranked 2.0 already in a video, but a few more details have come to light. So just to briefly outline it for you all, there's 7 tiers coming to the rank system. It's being decoupled from the champions, there's no longer champion borders, but your account will have a border and a symbol for each of your tier and the division. From bronze to diamond, the tiers, there's 5 divisions, and masters and grandmasters are their own. Some of the things we hadn't seen in the dev Q&A when they talked about the rank 2.0, one of the first things you come into is the season screen, just talking about this season, what rewards you can get. It also shows at the bottom what all the borders are, and what all the ranks are, and your current rank and your current standing and your progression. It's also got an infographic on how the matchmaking works and about the progression. What's interesting here is that basically bronze, silver, gold and platinum players can all play together no problem in a party, although a diamond player can only play with platinum, master and grandmaster, and masters and grandmasters can only play with diamond players. So this was a question I brought up because the devs didn't really mention it in the Q&A, but there is a form of tiered matchmaking here, so you can't just party up with people that are much higher tiers than you. Although from bronze to platinum, maybe it is quite a big way, but with this in place, maybe they can tweak it in the future if they find that people going bronze and platinum in a group isn't working out. Maybe they can add a little bit more. Another thing that we didn't know was that there is a decay of your ranking, but below gold 5, which is shown in the infographic, you cannot decay. So your progression up to that point is not going to go away. So you're always going to start off from a middle point if you leave the game and you were, say, higher at a diamond or something. Again, everything is pointing at the fact that you can go forwards much easier than you can go backwards, and you could technically go forwards even on a 50% win rate because you have those extra chances and things I talked about in the last video. So it'll be interesting to see how the inflation works and if there'll be lots of people in the higher ranks. But I don't think anybody's played 15 rank matches to get ranked yet, and I don't know what the point systems are in rewarding the matchmaking rating or the TP, the triumph points. Another thing we didn't know was that once you're demoted, you're set at 70 TP in the division you are demoted to, which is quite interesting because that's also losing 30 TP into that bracket, so could also help with not having too much inflation. Another awesome thing that they've added is custom animations for weapon inspection. This was in a few patches ago on the PTS, but now is in properly and is going live, and is awesome because some of the characters have things on their hands that look pretty cool, like the Steam Demon Androxus. He has tips on his fingers that are filled with like this serum or whatever is controlling his hydraulics on, I guess, his steampunk body. So that's actually very cool to see, and also gives you a complete view of the weapon. And as I always say, free-to-play games kind of rely on people buying the cosmetics, so having some way to look at it a bit more in depth is pretty cool. And also you can use it and cancel it by firing, so you can use it as a bit of a top play of the game sort of taunt or something if you really want to, instead of putting down your spray. So basically they've said that they've improved the custom game menu. One of the things they've added is a spectator mode option, whether you let people spectate or not, and add a password in, which is definitely good for people that want to scrim and don't want people just jumping in and spectating them whilst they're doing some esports practices, and you don't want an enemy team to watch you and get any ideas about what strats you're going to use. So that's cool, although the menu does seem to be a little bit broken at the moment. Like it seems to be switching between Europe and NA when you select different selections below, but I don't know whether that's more to do with the PTS server rather than the actual game itself, because I think that they've shifted to NA servers because the pings are quite high even if you select EU servers. They also added a scope sensitivity option for Kinesis scope, which is awesome, and that's just a nice little touch. I'm going to talk about the cosmetics in another video, but they are actually pretty damn awesome this patch. And anyway, let's get on to the nitty gritty, what I love to talk about, the nerfs and buffs. And honestly, I think this time around, there's nothing really that's questionable. It's all pretty, yeah, this is working out. Some things may need to be tweaked in the future, but I think generally the changes are pretty good. What they've said is they wanted to focus on legendary cards that weren't used so much, and actually I think some of the things they've added might help quite a bit. So the first buff is to Ashe, who had a little bit of gameplay in the background. So what they've done is made the legendary card Rally Here also increase the ultimate charge rate by 15%. So Rally Here was the legendary card that changes your ultimate to also stun enemies for 2 seconds on impact, and also grant allies within 100 feet 20% increased damage for 3 seconds. Actually, because they've added something else onto it, it means that the card isn't big enough for the description, but it also now adds that 15% recharge on your ultimate. So you'll just be getting your ultimate back on time more often, and because it's a more valuable ultimate, now with all of this stuff, I think it actually works out and makes it more of a pickup, but still not sure whether it's a top pickup, but still an option there. Barracks also got another interesting buff to one of their legendary cards. So Fortify is the card that increases the health of the barricade, but now also reduces a cooldown of it by 3 seconds. This card was used in previous patches, but not so much now that the Tinkering card come out. It's quite useful because you could engage at medium ranges, and a lot of people did like picking up Architectronics in more the casual setting because it's easier to use. But I think actually this Fortify is a good change, and the barricade can be very useful and strategic, and the extra 3 seconds off it could help a lot and really make this pickup more of an option there too. Buck as well has had a buff to their Bulk Up, and this is the card that instantly heals you for 600 when you hit recovery, but now it also grants 15% increased damage whilst recovery is active. So basically just buffing up your recovery, and it's not that huge of a cooldown, and because you're healing yourself a lot, I think this one also might be an option here. It's quite a nice little pickup there, and little addition to the Bulk Up card. Lex Heroism card, which is the one after you combat slide, you get increased attack speed from 25% before to 35% now with the legendary card. I'm still not sure whether this one will be the big pickup, but could maybe sustain a more aggressive Lex. Yeah, and we'll just have to see how that one plays out. Lian's also had a buff to Eminence, so this is the card that does extra damage with your Q, with your precision, when you fire at a range. Before it was 100 feet, and it was just ridiculous because hardly anybody was ever at 100 feet. Now it's at 50 feet, which is much easier to get off quite often. Again, I'm not sure whether it'll replace the other ones with this legendary card, but it does make it more viable than before. Willow's also had a buff to their legendary card, and that is Scorched Earth. So it now reduces the cooldown of Dead Zone by 3 seconds. So this is the card that damages shields for 50% of the maximum health over 1 second. So Dead Zone is actually quite a nice ability because you're getting off the 0 healing, and if you're against 2 enemy champions with shields and you want to pick up Dead Zone, this additional little cooldown there is going to help out a lot because you're going to be able to put down that Dead Zone a lot more often. There are also some kind of quality of life changes that they've made, and the first one is to Ying. So what they've basically done here is made Ying fire faster and in smaller bursts, but the damage has been reduced on each single shot. But basically the stats are refire time is reduced from 0.7 to 0.5 seconds, time between shots reduced from 0.1 to 0.05 seconds, and the ammo count has been increased to 6 to 8, and damage per shot reduced from 120 to 90. And they updated the VFX and sound, and basically it sounds much like a shorter burst than before, and it's much easier to hit all of your shots, and it feels like a little bit more like a burst fire weapon almost. You're like hitting off one shot and then it's like a short burst. And the thing is, what they've done with this to try and bring back the legendary card Focusing Lens is reduce the bonus damage from 200 to 150. But you have to bear in mind that you've got shorter bursts. It's much easier to get all of your bursts on one person because it's over less of a time, so they can't move away from it. So you're going to be getting this bonus damage off a lot. And the first game I played with Ying, I got the highest damage in the team by quite a distance. And I wasn't exactly playing that aggressively. I was putting down my illusions all the time, hanging back quite a little bit, but the damage output was quite fantastic. I don't know whether this has gone a bit too far, but it's quite fun to use. It does actually feel more intuitive than Ying did before. Charlin's also got a buff, as they've basically reduced the amount Charlin is slowed whilst drawing his bow from 30 to 10%. So this is actually pretty massive, because whenever you play Charlene, there's always a choice that you make, because sometimes you draw your bow and you're in low health after you've had a fight and you've killed somebody, but you didn't realize that you killed them, so you've drawn your bow again, and you're like, well, I can either fire my arrow off now and heal up, or I can keep this arrow just in case somebody comes around the corner or might be able to get another kill. But this kind of takes away the choice as much, because it's much less of a penalty to keep your bow strung up and ready to fire. And I mean, you can even dodge around quite a bit if you have that 10% reduction, and you can make up for it quite easily with some cards with the movement speed. So it is actually pretty cool, especially as Charlene had seemed to have dropped out of grace a little bit, as other champions were maybe taking him over a little bit. Cassie was definitely in her element, which is why we should come on to talk about Cassie. So Cassie has been nerfed in her legendary card Exaction. This is one that gives damage bonus from 40 to 30%. And basically whenever you hit your shot, you get that bonus damage. Before, you could pretty much two-shot the squishiest champions in the game. Now, you can't do it as easily, but if you combo it with the blast shot, you can still get quite a few of the enemies. And I think the core of Cassie still remains in the fact that you're hitting, dodge rolling, getting your dodge roll back almost instantly, and basically rinse and repeat. And in some skilled hands, you can roll around pretty much all of the time. It does make sense in taking away a little bit of a burst. I like the dodge a lot. I like the movement here in Cassie, and thankfully actually they seem to have agreed here and haven't touched that as of yet. So actually a nice change there. Genos 2 has had a little bit of a nerf in that they've had the health reduced from 2600 to 2400. It's a bit of a weird one, because Genos in a lot of games is sort of hiding behind walls and not engaging all too much. I'm not sure he's worked out exactly how Hi-Rez imagined him to do. They probably expected him to be a bit more aggressive. And actually this patch, the Ying is, I guess, the shining star in aggressiveness of healers. So I think there's going to be a lot of Ying pickups with just generally being able to do a lot of damage and engage as a healer. And I mean, Ying's still got capable healing. So another change that's been made is to Grover. So it's kind of more of a feeling change. So the pre-fire has been reduced from 0.3 seconds to 0.2 seconds, and post-fire has been reduced from 0.8 to 0.7 seconds. So they're taking like 0.2 seconds off the time to refire, but they also reduced the damage from 400 to 330, and that'll also affect with scaling and things. But actually, the first game I played, I comfortably got the highest damage with Grover in my match 2. And again, I wasn't playing that aggressively. I was kind of hanging back, although that gives you more damage as Grover. And it wasn't as high as the Ying damage I was able to get off in the match, but it was comfortable. I was on like 52,000 damage, whilst everyone else was on 30-something damage in the team. It did seem that I was able to put out quite a lot of consistent damage, although they weren't as big hits as they were before. But I don't think it's necessarily a nerf or a buff too much. It does actually feel better to play with, actually, because I think the pre-fire especially made Grover feel a little bit clunky. Ruckus 2 has had a bit of a change. The spin-up time with the miniguns has been reduced from 3 seconds to 1 second, but to match this, the damage has been reduced from 53 to 48 damage. So basically, it'll be less of a penalty to stop firing your miniguns, because before it was like, well, you may as well just hold down the left click to keep your miniguns going, so you don't have to have this spin up time of 3 seconds and your damage reduced over that, so you are more reluctant to take off your minigun spin. I think even with the damage reduction, that does give you quite utility. So here again, it's just like a quality of life improvement, and will hopefully make Ruckus feel better to play. Ceres 2 has had a little bit of a tweak, and the Soul Orb no longer requires you to hold for the firing input for the first orb to shoot out, so you'll just tap it and it should go out, which is just a little quality of life again. The next one that is the buff is for Skye, to go from 1800 health to 2000 health. So Skye is still slowly being buffed during the patches, although I'm not exactly sure whether taking away her close-up burst damage that she had before, which was quite high, and reducing that to meet more middle range damage was the way to go with Skye, because sneak up on somebody, you want to kind of burst them down. She can't do that as well, but the extra 200 health does give her more dueling potential. I still did find her a bit awkward to play as I was playing her in the PTS, but we'll just have to see how much of an impact this has. Worth mentioning is that she's been buffed in the fact that, indirectly, in the fact that Lex Retribution no longer reveals stealth targets. So even if he's got the Retribution on you, then you'll still be invisible. Another buff is that barracks turrets no longer detect you in stealth, so even if you play against a barrack, you don't have to worry about getting close to them and getting spotted by those turrets, which was so annoying. So actually you might be able to quickly burst down a barrack, as they have quite a low health pool, without being completely shattered by the turrets as you approach them. So that was pretty much the balancing this patch, and honestly, I've said other patches, I've had a bit of confusion as to where they're going with some of the decisions. This time around, actually, everything feels pretty damn good. I don't think anything bad is coming forward, and most of the stuff coming through is pretty good, and they're making the legendary cards actually feel useful across the board, so there aren't as many useless cards going forwards, which is pretty damn good. They have also added 2 test maps, and they're both Onslaught maps, and this is Vex and Toxic, although I've been trying to queue up for it in the PTS, and I think everybody's playing either the competitive or the casual at the moment, as I wasn't able to get into any matches on the Onslaught. I think I'm going to cover the skins in a separate video because there's quite a few epic ones here. I might do an opening of the chests, but that'll probably come out in a few hours after this video, I think. I'm not sure if I'll be able to stream today, but let's see if we can. If not, then we'll give it a go tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a road to ranked in the PTS. That could be quite fun. Anyway, what does everybody else think about Way of the Warrior, the Open Beta 56 patch? Be sure to let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more of my content, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Joshino.